There is no scenario to 2050 in which, even one that meets the 2-degree target, no scenario that has less than 40% fossil.
So Scott, you're the Director of Sustainable Energy Division. So what is sustainable energy exactly?
So when we talk about sustainable energy, we are talking about using coal, we're talking about using oil and gas and nuclear, as well as energy efficiency and renewables. So sustainability isn't only about climate, it's about the whole range of topics.
Okay, and at the moment, we're so heavily dependent on fossil fuels. And although we have made some progress in renewable energy, such as, and also different innovations such as, electrical cars, it's not something that it's not a system we're going to be able to change overnight. So how do we make our current system more sustainable?
You're absolutely right that in today's world, 80% of the energy is based on fossil energy. There is no scenario to 2050 in which, even one that meets the 2-degree target, no scenario that has less than 40% fossil. So under all views of the future, fossil will remain an important part of that mix. Now, how do we reconcile those two? I've been doing some work recently with other players in this world. You can find the whole idea of fossil. How can we use fossil more efficiently? How do we reduce the carbon intensity, the environmental footprint of the fossil system? Part of it is about switching from petrol-driven cars to electric cars, as you've said. If we look at the whole electricity generation sector, the average efficiency of a coal-fired power station in the world might be 33 or 34% efficient. If we can work to get clean technology in to improve the percentage of thermal efficiency up to higher rates, the most advanced technologies are on the order of 44% today. That will have a significant impact of getting the same amount of electricity, but for much less carbon emissions, carbon use. So one part of reducing the environmental footprint of the energy sector is getting more efficient fossil technology in place. However, there is an absolute carbon budget of how much carbon CO2 we can emit. And if we exceed that, it doesn't matter if we're doing it more efficiently or not, we're still in the process of cooking our planet. That's got to stop. So how are you going to do that? Another approach is carbon capture and storage. If we're going to continue using our coal, oil, and gas, and a lot of people are against that, we've got to find a way to reconcile the emissions with this carbon budget. Carbon capture and storage would be an important way to do that. Now, the final area that we're really concentrating on is preparing the energy system of the future. And this is where I like to talk about energy for tomorrow. We're really reinventing the system for tomorrow. And if we can think about quality of life, and as you can see on the graphic, quality of life is really related to energy consumption. And if we can really think about the energy system in terms of the services that it's providing, and we're providing better lighting, we're providing better heating and cooling, all of those kinds of approaches, instead of thinking about selling more kilowatt hours and instead of thinking about selling more BTUs, suddenly the system makes more sense. Let's think about one entire energy system with distributed generation in different parts, central efficient systems, and all of the information technology, allowing you to respond on an instantaneous basis to supply and demand. That will suddenly allow you to achieve both what I mentioned before, the development agenda, but also the climate agenda together. And that's why you need an integrated system altogether.
Okay, and obviously for this to happen, you're going to need the help of, the governments of, global governments, I assume, and, organisations such as, UNECE. You have been working with governments of the world to try and get them to, firstly acknowledge climate change and try and get on board sustainable energy. But how do you get this to just go from just talking about climate change and sustainable energy to actually have real action happen?
That's actually a fantastic question. I would like, if you can put to the next graphic here, we have the Sustainable Development Goals were agreed in New York. There are 17 of them. And if you look at all of the Sustainable Development Goals, they're related to health, they're related to environment, they're related to transportation. You'd have to read them all, and there's a lot of different indicators for them. My view as an energy person is you can find energy everywhere in the system of Sustainable Development Goals. It's the golden thread that connects them all. In addition, in Paris in December, they agreed to the climate change agreement, trying to keep temperatures from rising 2 degrees or 1.5 degrees if we want to be really ambitious. We mentioned earlier that there's 80% of the current energy mix is fossil-based. If we continue on our current trends, we're looking more at 4 degrees, probably 6 degrees increase, and it's happening right away. So suddenly, and I'm finally getting to your question, how are we going to move beyond the aspirational ambition that was set forward in Paris, that's been agreed with these Sustainable Development Goals? Fine, yeah, we'd all like to have a better world. But how do you make that happen? It's something that's concentrating our minds. Every country is different. Each country, each region has got its own motivators, its own drivers. We can't simply wag our finger at people and say, you've got to stop doing this and do it a different way. You've got to find a way to align their self-interests with the desired social outcomes. So how do we have an impact on it? At UNECE, we are working very much to develop standards. If we can have normative instruments and standards that everyone can agree on, then we can start making progress. It doesn't mean I'm going to dictate to you how much insulation you have to put in your house. It's not going to mean that I'm going to dictate to you what kind of a car you can buy. But they're coming up with different instruments that help countries move in the right direction. So what can governments do? They can start saying, all right, this is a serious problem, and we can start putting some serious plans and programs in place so that my country can make its fair share of the contribution to the objectives.
Well, it definitely sounds like a huge and very important issue, and it will be really interesting to see how this develops.
The 17 Sustainable Development Goals, as I said, energy is the golden thread that connects them all. But there is one goal that's very much focused on energy, and that's Sustainable Development Goal number 7, which is affordable, accessible energy for all. The specific elements of Sustainable Development Goal number 7 are shown on the slide. We are working very hard to make sure that countries, the member states of the UNECE, but also other member states around the world, are able to achieve those objectives.
Well, I really hope we get there, and thanks for coming and chatting with us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
That's all from myself and Scott Foster. Thanks for watching, and remember to click back to Dukascopy TV.